he's involved with. He is the manager of education and training. So what better guest to have on? He's already on the line. So go ahead and say hi.
Hey, how are you?
That was
we were gonna do this live in Texas, but it didn't quite work out. But hey, here we sit, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it with you.
Yeah, this is great, and thank you. Okay, so we've had some technical difficulties, but that's part of life. And so now, Dr. Starkey is actually in a church because he couldn't get good Wi-Fi at his home. So he's got Jesus and Wi-Fi, and we're good. And so this is gonna be an awesome. It's gonna be an awesome interview. But let's start. Okay, everybody. Like, I've been training athletes for 20 years, and I've been using your product for that long, and I've been just so excited to see the development in kids with their just with their performance and everything when you introduce just something as simple as minerals into the body. And you're so educated on, I love how you put it, and so I want you to talk about it a little bit, how you put how much we lose in hydration and all those things for just a normal person.
Sure. And that's a great point, by the way. I love your platform, Jen. I love the fact that you're a mom, you're a nurturer. You're the ones that put the boots on the ground. Of course, dads, we put the best pads and the best helmets and the best cleats, and we're all about the show. But remember, oftentimes, I don't care what the show is. I don't care what name is on your cleat. It's the machine inside the cleat that is the most important to me. And ultimately, when it comes right down to it, a lot of our athletes, Jennifer, they always focus on the pre-workouts and the post-workouts and, the newest name in the sporting drink industry. But what scares me sometimes is that when you look at these different, drinks available, when the sugar content outweighs the electrolyte content, and there's more sugar than there is electrolytes, we have a problem.
And I don't feel like there's really electrolytes in those products. To me, it's just sodium.
So that is a great point. And yet at the same time, as we've mentioned before, you don't have to be an athlete to benefit from electrolyte use. I mean, when you stop to think about it, I don't know about you, but as a parent in the stands watching my child perform, that emotional stress is worse than any workout that I do on a weekly basis. I mean, I feel like at the end of the game, I feel like I've been run over by a fleet of diesels and I've aged 5 years within the fourth quarter, right? So I want to present it this way. We lose between 2.5 to 3 cups of body fluid a day just by breathing. Now in Texas, you don't see your breath often, but in those really cold states, when you can see that perfect swirl of moisture coming from your mouth, that's body fluid. And whether you can see it or not, guess what? We're breathing it all day. I mean, and that's my point, is that, Jennifer, when's the last time you quit breathing since you left your mother's womb?
Exactly.
And I know how old you are, and it hasn't happened, right?
Right.
And yet through respiration, perspiration, urination, defecation, and of course, in women, that time of the month, during that time of their life, there's a constant steady pull and excess during that time of the month for women. So in other words, we're alive, we're breathing, we're perspiring, and to me, that's the key, is that if this output is at 2.5 to 3 cups, you can imagine with our athletes under extreme, and I know how hot it gets in Texas. So the minute they strap on their helmets and all their pads and they start increasing that respiration, there's a heavy drain on that body. And every year, Jennifer, we hear of a young athlete at the prime of their lives that pass away because of, the heat, right?
Yeah.
And yet for pennies on the dollar, literally, we could put that balance back in. And that's what Trace Minerals is all about, is by educating and delivering electrolyte products that range from liquid, tablet, powders, effervescence, across the board. So it's a delivery process that every athlete's different, but we're made exactly the same. And when it comes down to that electrolyte, I think that ultimately, though, as athletes, we focus on the macro electrolytes and not the micro. And I think it's the micro that are being overlooked. And I'd love to discuss more of that with you today.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I do what I do with my son. You know, he's 17, 285 pounds. And so he does the tablets in the morning with breakfast. I make him take them at lunch. I put him in his little lunch box. It's not a little, by the way, it's a big lunch box. And then, you know, and then he also takes it when he gets home. And then during that time, he's got the packets. I've got the trace minerals in his water that he's carrying around. Let me show that real quick. This stuff right here, and you know, I put that in his water so that he has it throughout the day, because they carry around those gallon jugs, you know, at school.
And then, I'm going to do this. I'm going to show him the new label, because that's what will be coming to you as the new label.
I have some of those, but this one's open. So I just grabbed it. It was in my kitchen. And then this one I do during the games. And this is the Endure product. It's really difficult to get it to them during the games. And so we figured out ways to do it, like meet him at halftime and stuff like that before he's running off we've decided how to put it in his locker, that wherever they change, you know, because all these big schools do is Gatorade crap, and it doesn't do anything. I think it actually takes from an athlete, but I'm looking at it from, you know, a trainer's perspective and performance perspective. I know it's as a mom, I'm looking at it as I want my son's heart not to burst, and so I want him to have the minerals that he needs to function at that level in the heat that they deal with, and injury too. Like the recovery from injuries is so much quicker when your body has what it needs. And then when you think about the average, I'm gonna let you talk in a minute. I see you're just
No.
When you think about the average athlete these days, they weren't like you and me when we were growing up as athletes. We didn't have energy drinks that were robbing us of even more nutrients. We didn't have we weren't drinking Cokes and stuff like that, you know, and leaching our bodies and our bones. Literally, our bones are brittle because we don't have enough minerals in them. And then we're not even eating right, and so we're not even getting it through our food. And then when we do eat good, it's so minimal because it's not in our soil. So it's so simple, it's so inexpensive, it's so simple. And that's why I'm so excited that you're coming on here just to enlighten everyone and my listeners and people that, you know, that follow me.
Well, I'd love to start with the water.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really stop to think about it, Jennifer, and for all your hopefully those that will watch and listen, were we really designed to live on bottled, filtered, distilled RO water? I mean, that is so not a part of us, because we were designed to live on groundwater, spring water, creek water, river water. But I don't know about you, but I've been to my local creek lately and I had no desire to dip a cup.
Yeah.
We're scared to death of our environment, right?
Yeah.
So what are we doing to this water? Because in that groundwater, spring water, creek water, it is packed full of these minerals.
It's also packed full of
not been filtered.
But it's also packed full of pesticides and stuff like that now. That's why we have to do those things.
And that's exactly why we've gone to the bottled filter RO, because we trust them. But I would say that again, what are we removing? We're not just removing the scary things. We're also removing the elements too. And therefore, I oftentimes like to look to that as the empty cab effect. Mm-hmm. So it's like waving down a taxi cab, paying them, but not getting in, because what good is it if you don't get in and be delivered where you need to be? And that's what this, we've got to go back and put that emphasis back into our water. So that's what I love about what you state with your son, is that you start his day by putting those minerals back into his drinking water. Mm-hmm. What a wonderful place to put it. Now, again, every individual has taste preference. So you can dilute it to your taste preference, because I know you've been around this industry since you were a little girl, because I worked with your mom.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the number one complaint with the liquid minerals is the taste. But the concept, the apple a day that kept the doctor away. Mm-hmm. It's not what the apple tastes like, because I know no apple eater that they take a bite and go, oh, that is so disgusting, but I know it's healthy for me, so I'm going to keep eating. No, we do it because we enjoy it. Yeah. And this should be enjoyable. So when you put it in, and especially from a mother's perspective, your children better than anybody. Mm-hmm. You know what they like and what they don't like. So you can put this into water, protein shakes, smoothies. I don't care how you get it in, as
Right.
long as you're starting them, you know, because again, that's where it would be in the first place. And remember this, I love the when it comes to water drinking, you know, I love the concept of half your body weight in ounces of water daily. So if you have a 185-pound son, you know, again, do the math on that. So we're literally
285 was right.
285.
Did I say 185? Oh my God. No,
No,
he's a big boy.
he's a big boy. So again, so if you stop to think about it, you being small and petite, you're not going to drink the same amount of water that
Right.
your son.
Right.
But I will say this, I believe the number one culprit in all of our athletes' inflammation starts with dehydration.
I totally agree with you 100%. I've done this for so long. I've seen it. I've witnessed the teams that I've got to work with that got to have the benefit of this and the teams that don't. And it's
Right.
a huge, it's night and day difference. It's, you know, and when I teach it to the parents, they're just like, that just makes so much sense. I'm like, yeah, their heart is a muscle. Their heart needs to have minerals to work and pump properly. And I mean, it's so simple and so inexpensive. I just wish that we could just, you know, yell. I know you've been doing this for so long, but it's hard to, it does take some education, but
Yep.
it's worth it. It's totally worth it.
Well, the scary part to me too is that, again, I'll take it right back to mom and dad. I mean, our foods today, for instance, our foods being grown on soil that I guarantee you what your grandparents tasted, you know, doesn't taste the same from the same soils today, if they're even, if the fields are even there. My point to that is that if these minerals, and I could take it back, and I don't want to get too scientific, and I don't want to get too wordy,
Too nerdy.
Yeah. Back
Take it
in
back to 19, what was it that you said? I saw a video.
1912, yeah, 1912, there was a Nobel Peace Prize winner that I love this guy because his Nobel was in medicine, but he took his knowledge back to the soil, and he basically stated that, you know, humanity basically is going to be healthy or unhealthy according to the fertility of the soil.
Yeah.
We'll be able to, and I think we're there, right? I mean, if you look at the types of health challenges we face today as a society, athlete or non-athlete alike, we are facing mountains of challenges with our health. And I truly believe that, you know, there was one other doctor that stated that back in 1936, Dr. Charles Northern. I like this doctor because he takes it, he was a gastroenterologist. He took it back to the gut. What is it that, you know, was keeping his patients unhealthy? And he took it back to the soil and estimated that through his research, 99% of the American population back then, what is that, 83 years ago?
Yeah.
Were deficient in these minerals due to agricultural farming techniques. So if that information is true, he went on to state, by the way, no matter how delicate that deficiency is in our bodies, it will sicken, suffer, and shorten our lives.
Absolutely.
That's terrifying to me today, because when we have our young athletes who they don't drink properly, they don't eat properly, and of course at that point they don't supplement properly.
Right.
To me, that becomes a train wreck. It's just a matter of time before our athletes start, and again, heaven forbid that we lose another one of our young athletes and leave a family empty.
Right.
In the prime of their lives. I mean, that to me is, you know, shouldn't happen if we're giving the proper knowledge and proper tooling.
Right. And all of y'all's what I like about y'all's products is it's been tested, that it's proven. Not only has it been proving in my life, my whole 43 years on this earth, because my mother, you know, sold your products in the store, and so I've been around it my whole life, you know. It's also that it comes from the earth. It's from the soil. It's not made in a lab. Like so many of these nutritional products are made in a lab, and your body can't absorb things that are not normal. I mean, that are not
they're synthetic.
What?
Synthetic.
Synthetic. That's the word. Thank you. The synthetic stuff, it actually, I've read where synthetics, when you take like a synthetic vitamin A or B or whatever, it actually takes more from your body. It like tricks your body, it like robs your body of more because it's like, okay, I got to find it now, you know?
I think that when it comes to building our house of health as a society, we've been building it from the roof down.
Yeah.
Because we want exotic, we want exciting, we want the newest, the greatest. But guess what? If we take it back to the foundation where we should be building, again, that's where I believe that we have to start, especially, it might not be sexy or exciting when we start talking about trace minerals, but they are absolutely the pinnacle piece of the puzzle that's lacking today. That I don't care how much creatine, and I don't care how much protein, I don't care how much, of whatever it is that the amino acids, it all comes back to that basic foundation, because what these trace minerals do, Jennifer, is they help activate and regulate and balance those nutrients so our bodies can utilize them. So we see these athletes that are drowning themselves in all these different nutrients that, again, they have their place.
Right.
But if we're putting them on if the foundation is cracked to begin with, does it really matter what we're building with or what we're decorating with? Eventually it's all going to come down anyway. And when it does come down, it comes down with a great big boom.
Yeah, because they can't recover. They don't have the proper, magnesium, potassium, sodium chloride. All those things are so essential to recovery and energy. That's why they're grabbing the energy drinks, because it's not that they need energy. They don't need caffeine. Their body's like needing that to function. And I'll tell you, even, you want to say something? Go ahead.
No. I'm going to build on that because, we reach for these, again, moms, they're reaching for these coffees, of all types of sizes, flavors, loaded with caffeine. But I would say to you that just a good clean cup of water with the minerals added to it will give you more energy than any one of those products consistently. Now you might have a spike, but remember, with that spike, you're going to have that drop.
Well, you know what I like? I like my coffee in the morning. I will tell you this, and I put the collagen, the powdered collagen from your company in it, because that has minerals in it. And I even add 10 drops of the Endure in there, so I'm getting my minerals with my coffee, because I just enjoy that. And that's something I teach that even when I'm talking to people just about nutrition or even any kind of thing that even fitness. You have to do what you enjoy. Like, you can't take everything out and live this like pristine life. It doesn't work. And so if I enjoy my coffee in the morning, I'm going to add stuff to it that I know is going to benefit me at my energy level, because I have a lot of energy. And and I do think it's because of what I supplement myself with good, clean products, like you guys have. And because I do all day long, and then.
Well, that's the key though, is that you do it all day long. And that's a great point. Most coffee drinkers drink their coffee typically just in the morning, right? Now we do have those extremes that they drink nothing but coffee. And I would encourage you, if, there's balance in life, but nothing should replace the water, right? But at the same time, I always ask, non-athlete and athlete alike, most of our supplementation that these individuals are doing are at breakfast.
Right.
I would ask the question, does that mean you quit breathing after breakfast and quit stressing after lunch? That's when we need it the most. So I would say to you that as you're, nurturing like you do all day long, that's your energy boost right there, is that you're feeding and supplying that demand all day long, not just at breakfast.
Well, I'll tell you, my daughter's been struggling with major headaches, and she's a former athlete, and I raised her on this stuff. And she was always doing the packets during games, because she played basketball, she played volleyball, she played Olympic level sand volleyball, and so she was out in the elements. And I was giving her this stuff all the time growing up. And now she's 21 and in nursing school, and she was just saying the other day, she was like, I have this headaches. And I was like, have you been taking your minerals? I said, we've got a whole house full of minerals. And she was like, no. And I was like, go take some minerals. And so she actually went and took the electrolyte stamina, the pills that we have in the house. Yeah.
The tablets.
The tablets. That's it. Yeah. The tablets. And I have them here too. I have them too, but no. So she went and did that. And she was like, she said within 30 minutes, I feel so much better. And then she actually went to the gym, worked out, and she wasn't going to. She wanted to, but she wasn't going to. So the stress that she's under, and it's a lot of stress that she's under. She almost threw up yesterday because of one of the things she had to do was a pass fail thing. And she was like, she's such an overachiever. She was freaking out,
Right.
she passed it fine, passed with flying colors like she always does. So what did I do? I told her, I said, honey, I want you taking the max hydrate throughout the day. Okay. This stuff's amazing, by the way. She loves the taste of it. And then make sure you're putting the liquid concentration in your water. She carries a big old water thing to school.
Right.
And she says it's made a huge difference.
Well, I would say to you, Jen, as a mother and a concerned mother, because you see the stress that she's under, it's hard to watch, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would say that she's not an ex-athlete. She is probably more intense when it comes to the emotional battle.
Yep.
Because she is involved. When you say that she's in nursing school, I know what it takes and I would say most athletes would say, I would rather be physically exhausted than emotionally exhausted, because they're in a whole nother, they're playing a whole nother sport at an emotional level that I believe is one of the most damaging,
I think a lot of nurses struggle with that though, and she's going to be able to help them because so many of them are like living on energy stuff and and cigarettes or whatever. Like they have the worst, they're in health, but they have the worst health. And so what she's doing is she's taking the things that she learned as an athlete, because she was always the leader of every team. So like, you got your point guard. So what do? They're having to think more than that. Really, they have to think about everybody instead of just themselves. Right. And you have to do that in every position, but there's points positions that are like a quarterback, like the setter, and she was the setter. She was the point guard. And then, and I know that God had her go through all that and at all those extreme levels too. She played at high levels and won a state championship to prepare her for this. And she literally looks at every situation like a game, and it's really prepared her well. She's even coaching her friends on how to do it. And I'm like, Alex, that's basically you got a team there, and it's your volleyball team, and and you're helping them manage. It's amazing.
Fantastic. I think that, how many athletes actually make it to the ultimate, level, right?
Right.
But I think that being a part of a team, being a part of, something bigger than them, and they start to realize that, again, this is just one facet, but it help them grow and achieve at all different levels as long as they apply that. But I would say that, again, going back to that knowledge and that power of nutrition is one of the things that both athletes and non-athletes alike just overlook until they're in a crisis. And that, to me, is the saddest part of our education, is that we're typically dealing with the consumer or the athlete that is in the recovery, because they always say the same thing. I didn't think it could happen to me. Well, guess what? When it happens, remember this: 1/3 of all your nutrients go to the most important healing in the body. If we're not supplying that demand, guess what? It's going to rob the cells, the tissues, the organs, and eventually your bone, just to maintain the healing of one, of that part of the body, or that wherever that, injury is. If we're not supplying that demand, we're robbing from from another body part or place within the body. Guess what happens in the end? Once they say that, well, that my shoulder or my knee is now healed, they have 2 or 3 other conditions that they didn't have beforehand, or weakening in the body. And guess why? It's just that supply and demand. What I believe that we're capable of doing with these products, Jennifer, especially in your, in your realm, in your, your platform, is stopping the robbing process. Not only on the field, but in the classroom, and help that body promote that proper energy that it needs. And I would say to a student athlete, I much prefer that healing take place in the classroom than, sitting in a couch or, in some environment, thinking that the only way I can heal is by putting my foot up or giving my body, which is important. But like I said, I think that a part of this process and the healing we're stressing ourselves out in the classroom, which robs that healing ability if we're not careful.
Right.
And that stops the progression, and they don't put those two together sometimes.
Oh, and then they're not even eating good.
Right.
Oh my goodness, it's bad. I mean, I feed these football players. You know, you can't feed them enough, and so you have to give them certain foods. I mean, it's just it's what we live in. But uh,
I have a point of interest there. You know, we were designed to pick it, pluck it, dig it, fish it, and kill it, and drink lots of water.
Yeah.
That's how our bodies heal.
Yep.
And designed to feed. But when we feed it, you know, cooked, or I should say overcooked, nuked, eaten out of a can, a box, a pickup window, concession stand, or vending machine.
Yeah, we're not getting it.
That's not going to happen. And it will prolong our, you know, our healing process if that's if that's considered food, and that's what these athletes are living on.
You know, here's the deal. Like when especially with, I got a package at the door, Amazon. You just never know. I work from home, y'all. Okay. So, where was I at with my thought pattern on that? Okay. Like when it comes to female, issues and cramping, and I think that's a magnesium deficiency, because I see it more like a muscle, just like other things. And then there's all these disorders. And I think there's a lot of disorders now with kids with cognitive issues and clarity of mind. I have found, even with some of my clients who are older, when I put them on minerals, I just add this to your water, they're like, I can think better. And so why wouldn't we want that for our kids too, you know?
Right.
And so I was talking to a mom just yesterday, and I was like, hey, listen, start putting it in their water, because she's having cognitive issues with it. And she's like, I don't want to put them on that stuff that they want to put them on. And, you know, and so I was like, try this and see if it helps, because I guarantee you he's deficient in minerals, because they're not getting it, you know?
Right. And I couldn't agree more in the fact that, you know, to me personally, and my kids, they know all my because before we were never designed to live on a pill of any type.
Right.
We were designed to live on food as
a
part of that healing process. Now, again, let's go back to the balance process. There are ways that we can help the body heal, and I'm all for that. You know, I think that if the medical and the nutritional could come together with our knowledge and our know-how, we'd be the healthiest nation in the world.
I agree.
But I think that right now our health is based on profit margin, and I need to be careful with that statement. But I think that the first thing of choice that we should be reaching for when it comes to nurturing and healing the body should be a food approach, not a chemical approach. Because again, oftentimes what we're now discovering and research, you know, what our research is discovering is that a lot of these, anything that robs the body of an element causes a disorder. Yeah. Well, in this case, it could cause a, you know, whether it be deficiency, and that should be typically the word disease is a scary word.
Yeah.
But we don't often look at as deficiency as a scary word, and that should be a scary word, because that's just think about this. If we're not supplying that demand, so in other words, if these minerals are no longer in our water and our soil, they're no longer in our food.
Right.
If they're not in our food, they're not in our body. If they're not in our body, they call that deficiency in a doctor's office. If we don't resolve that deficiency, that becomes dysfunction or dis-ease. And that's when we usually take notice, because we're such a reactive society. But I would say to every athlete out there, you have to be proactive in order to keep that energy and to keep that body healthy and to keep your performance levels high. You have to supply that on a daily, consistent basis. It can't be a stop and go, because do we quit breathing after, again, we have to continue this balancing process. And that's where oftentimes as a society, because I have to ask, Jen, here we are on September 5th, how many New Year's resolutions are being lived as a society in America?
Right.
Zilch, nada.
Right.
And yet at the same time, it's so hard for us to be consistent unless we're in a crisis or we're in pain. And I would say we have to change that model. You have to change that perspective and put that emphasis. And that's what you've been doing for 20 years. And that's what that's what your mom was doing long before you were here, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's so simple. We complicate it, and I like simplicity. And that's what I love about that concentration product, the liquid one. You can just put that in just put it in anything. Get some minerals in you. I tell you, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's a doctor. She works with kids. She works with kids. What her organization is called, Wipe Out Kids Cancer. So she does a lot of studying on pH balancing, because they found that water that is balanced with pH balanced water actually can kill like cancer cells. And so she was talking to me about it, and she's like, we're doing all this research and stuff. And I said, in that water, if you were to add some trace minerals to that water for some of these kids, maybe that would help their bodies, like give them something to fight with. Because I feel like these kids they're doing chemotherapy and radiation, depending on the cancer, right? If you can give them something to work with while they're trying to kill the disease that's in their body, I feel like it would help with maybe just help with energy and side effects and things that are awful that they go through. I mean, yeah.
That little basic, simple product. Let me stop real quick. We talk about pH all the time, especially, those that are CrossFitters or, think about this for a minute. We can live 2 to 3 weeks. By the way, pH, for those that have to have the reminder, because when do we use this topic when's the last time you mentioned pH? You
and I talk about it all the time, so I'm glad you're saying that. People are like, what are they talking about?
So think about this. It's potential of hydrogen, okay? But to simplify that, that's what pH stands for. But to simplify that, think about this. We can live 2 to 3 weeks without food, 2 to 3 days without water, and 2 to 3 minutes without oxygen, right? Give or take. But that oxygen is the most important element of our existence, because without it, we
are dead.
Perish. We're dead. But when you think about it from within our bodies, think about this. The more acidic we become, the more oxygen deprived we become, and that's where we're left vulnerable.
That's good.
Okay? The more alkaline we become, the more oxygen enriched we become, and that's our protection. That's our insurance policy. But remember, I have to ask a question, because does one pH fit all? I mean, sure, if we drink, let's say, a 9.0 water, okay? I want to share this thought process with you. The most acidic liquid in the human body is found within our hydrochloric acid, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has a pH of 1.2 to 3. If we neutralize that acid, that concept, we are what we eat?
Yeah.
Not what we're eating, what's available or what we're capable of absorbing, right? We are what we absorb. So think about this from an aging standpoint. These individuals out there are eating everything you place in front of them, but they're still malnourished.
Right.
Because their gut function, the older we get, the less our bodies produce of that hydrochloric acid. Therefore, we have to sustain it and maintain it, which again comes from a mineral standpoint.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, the most alkaline pH in the human body is found within your bile of your gallbladder. And we remove that little organ in this nation
all the time.
Like it was placed there by accident, right?
It's crazy. It's so crazy. That's actually one of the first things I ask people when I'm consulting with them, is because I know it's so common. And then that's why they have, they can't digest anything. And I'm like, Get yourself on an enzyme. Why wouldn't doctor tell you that,
Well, if you think about this, that bile has a pH of 7.6 to 8.65. That's the most alkaline solution in the body. But the pH that is probably the most sensitive and most delicate is the pH of our blood.
Mm-hmm.
That blood pH has a pH of 7.35 to 7.45. Okay. If it differs 1/100%, we're dead.
Wow.
So if we're not supplying that demand, where's the worst place you can check for a mineral deficiency? In our blood, because the blood can't change. It's going to come from other places within the body, which of course is our cells, tissues, and organs. But at this point, remember this, the more balanced we become, the more oxygen enriched we become, and the body knows where, because again, whether it be saliva, urine, those are the two body fluids that we test for pH the most.
Right.
And they can differ from dehydration to spices to, you know, especially that saliva. But at this point, remember this, from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet, we are all designed to be Lamborghinis. But we treat ourselves like push mowers today, right?
Yes.
We push through the day hoping tomorrow gets better. And when tomorrow comes and goes and we keep pushing and we still have no energy and we still don't feel well, and we keep, you know what Einstein called that?
Crazy.
That's insanity.
Insanity.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Insanity. And yet I would say to your friend who's a doctor,
Yeah.
you know, we're trying to piece these little bodies put back together and try to help their bodies function the best we know how.
Yeah.
There's not a doctor or scientist on the planet that know what every one of these trace minerals do within the human body.
Yeah. She's excited. Because it's so inexpensive. They can just put it in their water and help them.
Yeah.
You know?
And yet,
it doesn't conflict with medicine and stuff.
No, I mean, I know of no physician, nutritionally or medically, that tell any of their patients or customers, quit drinking water, quit eating fruits, quit eating vegetables and fruits. I don't know of anyone doing that. That's where we would typically, and if you think about it, those raw fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes with that, little portion of protein, whether that be plant protein or, animal protein or fish. There's certain ways that we can put these pieces together from a food-based standpoint and properly supplement to their individual needs, because you and I both know, Jen, the worst case side effect if you take too much of this is a laxative response.
Right.
And I don't know of any nurturer or mother who has given birth who at some point during that pregnancy or after their pregnancy hasn't dealt with constipation of some form.
Totally. Well, that's why I take magnesium every night. It started because of the constipation issues, but then I realized how well it helped me recover. And so I take more than the average person, because I get that all the time. Like, well, how much should I take? And I think because we all are so different, I feel like we forget that we have a brain and we can actually we can actually figure things out for ourselves by how we feel. We get so confused. Well, this is what this person says, and this is what that report says, and this is what this thing says. And it's like, wait, slow down. How do you feel after taking I always say, just try 2 magnesium, whatever it is that you're taking, right? And start with the minimum. If you don't see a difference, you can always add to it. But I just know when I have been without my magnesium, I'm like, oh, that's what's off. Like you have to be reading your body more. It's like, why am I feeling off? Or why am I not going to the bathroom enough? Or why am I not recovering faster? I mean, I've even done it to myself, because we're not perfect. When I've been overly sore, I'm like, man, I need to start doing this again, or, because it's always an imbalance of some sort,
Right. I think that, again, your gut should be your number one barometer. By the way, we are our greatest physicians.
I agree.
We know us better than anybody, because you wake up with a sore big toe, guess what? You're the only one that knows it unless you share it.
Right.
That's why it's called a practice still out there. We take our own personal knowledge of our bodies and we give it to somebody that is qualified.
Right.
And then they take the information and then they come back with a diagnosis, which of course is, again, going to be different with every single individual, young and old, male and female. But at the same time, to me, this does not change.
Mm-hmm.
Does not. And yet, whether you add it, now I am a huge proponent of what you just mentioned. I love to start my day, every single day, with the concentrates. Mm-hmm. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because that's where it would have been there in the first place if we lived in a perfect world.
Right.
And then what I like to do is I like to take, a power pack, which I've got a little packet, mm-hmm. and the electrolyte stamina, the effervescence that we talked about, right?
Yep.
That your daughter loves. There are so many different, delivery systems that work for the individual that
Right.
is, and to you, you're the one presenting the information. We're presenting the information together.
Right.
It's the ones that are, what am I going to take that I'm going to be consistent with, and how can I protect? Because ultimately, from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, I'm in a battle.
Mm-hmm.
And whether I don't play football, but emotionally, we are in a battle together. It might not be physical like it once was, but it definitely, they don't call the silent killer in America today, the silent killer for no reason.
Right.
And that's that stress that we're under, whether you're a caregiver or a nurturer for your child. Again, Jennifer, tomorrow night, I guarantee you right now, as a mother,
Yeah.
as a coach,
Yeah.
a nutritional coach, your stress about tomorrow's night game has already started.
Yeah.
You're already in the process of working this out as to what he needs and how and then that doesn't then you take yourself to the stadium.
I know.
And then the worries begin, did he pick himself up? Did he look dizzy?
Yeah.
Man, that was a hard hit. And then
Yep.
all of a sudden, all those worries start piling up.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the game, and I would say to your athletes, I'm not interested in the first quarter.
It's that fourth
adrenaline
quarter.
takes it. The adrenaline takes its place in the first quarter. I am concerned most importantly about the fourth quarter, and especially the last 5 minutes when the game's on the line. Emotionally, mentally, and physically, that is the most strenuous part because you're tired, you're beat up, and now you're shifting into that fifth gear that some athletes have.
Mm-hmm.
And then the crash occurs after the game. And to me, we've already prepared by, taking it in the morning, taking it before and during a game, and now it's the after effect. And it's amazing to me, Jennifer, how much of, especially the size of your son, how much he can probably tolerate as to what his needs are, that only his body can tell you because he's listening. And then, of course, it's the recovery process, and they don't give them long. They wake them back up on Saturday. They come back in for video. Mm-hmm. It's an emotionally, if they won the game, it's a little easier to take it from the coaches. But if you lost, there's the emotional batterment coming from a negative standpoint of what we could do better.
Right.
And then, of course, that whole process starts over again. There's never a time in which water shouldn't be a part of the equation with these minerals. And to me, that is the key that is lacking today in our athletes.
Well, I'll tell you, our coaches, these football teams, I'm just using that as an example because that's where my life is right now. I mean, it happens with every team, that the coaches they're physically, emotionally strained too. They're working 7 days a week during football season because it's like a religion down here. And we were going into I have to tell you this, we were going into the gym to take pictures and do all that for the preseason stuff. And they had come from practice. So the kid, the coaches had to go take a shower, and I was talking to the head coach, and he just looked exhausted because he'd been a full day, out in the heat. It was 110 degrees that day. It was something ridiculous that day. And he was like, I'm going to go take a quick shower. I'll be back in. We can get these pictures done. And then we were going to go into a parent meeting until like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So, from 7 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night, these coaches are going out, doing everything. I had electrolyte packets in my purse. So I grabbed 2 out of my purse, and I said, Coach, because he was holding on to water, and I said, put these in your water bottle and down it before getting in the shower. I promise you'll feel better. I'm not kidding you. The next time I saw him was a couple of days later. He goes, what was that stuff? I need it in my life. I want my coaches on it. And I was like, well, I can come in and show you. And I said, I'm associated with the company now. I have an account. I can get it for you. No big deal. It's super inexpensive. I said, and so inexpensive. I said, your boys can buy it. And he was like, I want to provide it for them, And so, and I haven't yet been able to, because it is football season. We haven't, it's so frustrating because he's been trying to get me to come in to talk to them about it. Maybe this weekend I'll be able to, but they just need to know, because they're looking for something. I think we get so used to feeling tired that we think it's okay to be tired. And it's not
Exactly.
normal to be tired. When I'm tired, I'm going, what is off? What did I do? Did I not sleep good? Did I, like, I'm going through all the things. Am I not nourishing myself enough? Did I eat enough? Did I drink enough water? You know, I go through all these things. And because being tired is not normal. And
Right.
people think it is now. It's becoming a norm, you know?
Yep.
And so I just wanted to share, excuse me. I just wanted to share that story because that was just 2 packets. Could you imagine if he was using the concentrates, how much better he would feel? Because they're 4 hours in this heat and during the day after a full day of school teaching all day, right? And then they got
And the
games.
sad part about that is they're not the ones that have the pads on. They're yelling out demands, and it's your boys that are in the heat of that sun with all the pads and everything that's going on. To me, what I love about that story, Jennifer, is that he's had his personal experience.
Yes.
He felt the difference. And when our parents can feel the difference for themselves, it'll be that much easier to help promote it to their children. And I would
It's
encourage.
life-changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's life-changing. My daughter will never forget because when she took it for granted when she was an athlete and I was her mom and I was just making her take it. Here, take this, do that. And I'm doing it now with my son. Make sure you take this, because that's what I do as a mom. Like, you take this now and take this and do this. They don't even have to think for themselves, right? And so,
Right.
I mean, it's my job. I'm a nurturer, you know? And, but now that she's transitioning into that adulting thing and was able to feel it and experience it for herself, she was like, oh my gosh, it's like life-changing, you know? And so now she can now share that with others. And that's why I love you guys and I love your product and I love your all's heart. But we could talk, literally, I could talk to you for 5 hours and I know you have a life. And so I want to bring something up. You know, I'm a believer. I believe in God, and in the Bible, I just believe that God takes such good care of us. He made our bodies amazing. Like, we can heal, we can do all these things, and we can, we get a scratch and our body heals it. And like he made our bodies just amazing. And one of the scriptures that I always associate with y'all's product, and this is me, this is not y'all, this isn't Dr. Starkey, this is me talking, and I just want to share with you guys, is in the Bible, in Genesis 2, verse 7, the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. From dust to dust, right? What is dust? Dirt.
If you do the scientific definition of dust, it's minerals to minerals. That's what dust is minerals. So
if that is that's how he created us, why wouldn't we want that in our body? I mean, I think it's the key to foundational, like you said, we're from the roof down, we need to be foundational with it, you know?
And I think that as a society, think about what we've done over the last 4 years. We've industrialized, we commercialized, we pasteurize, we sanitize, we basically filter everything we touch, or process everything we eat and drink today. And we have beat up the very soil in which we were created from. I mean, there's nothing there. So to me, that is a perfect scripture in helping us educate ourselves back to the basics, so that we have to take care of these amazing, machines, tabernacles, instruments, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It's art. I mean, and to me, one of the things that I always think about, Jen, the number, and I'm going to throw just a low base number out at you. When's the last time you looked at a human blood cell?
Never.
Maybe your freshman year of college, right?
Maybe.
and we don't do it with our naked eye. We have to do it under a microscope. And think about this. We have to magnify it by at least 1,000.
Right.
But there are more components inside that one human blood cell than there are stars in the galaxy that your eyes can see.
That's crazy.
And who's responsible to conduct that internal symphony? We are. And it has to come from our knowledge. And that's what I love about your passion, Jen, is that we can take it from the basics, we can make it basic, but more importantly, if we stop for a moment and we take, and I think that that's another problem of our society. We're so hustle and bustle and so fast paced. We have to stop and be still for a minute. When we take it, ask the question, how am I feeling?
Right. I agree.
How am I feeling? Because to me, that is the key to movement. of change, is that we have to see the improvement, or we have to feel the difference before we can move forward with it. And to me, that's one of the key pieces. There's not a product that you can pick up from Trace Minerals that doesn't have this simple little guarantee on it. Feel the difference or your money back.
Yeah, I've never had anybody ever once say that anything negative once they've tried it, ever. And that's a long time.
Right.
The taste,
that,
that's with
that
kids.
logo right there.
Yeah.
As long as it has that logo.
Yep.
It has that foundational piece in it that we can all build on. So to me, that's the key that you're trying to promote, is that basic fundamental, balance to get our kids back emotionally, mentally, and physically, athlete or non-athlete alike. It will benefit them all. Absolutely.
And then when you feel good, it affects everybody. It affects everyone in your home, and affects every relationship. And it is truly spirit, soul, and body. Wellness is spirit, soul, and body. It's it's spiritual health, it's soul, and then body. And so if you're feeling good, you're going to have good relationships. You're going to have productive days. You're going to have there's just nothing bad that can come from that, and so it's why I'm so passionate about it. And even with dads and men who work really, really hard, and they come home, they're exhausted. They're not trying to be ugly and want to just sit there and do nothing. They're tired. They're worn out. And so some of the corporations I've been working with, it's going to change the family dynamic too. The kids are going to be like, Dad's not tired anymore. Or, Dad came home and wanted to go outside and play, or, and he usually just wants to go to bed. And to me, that's that God part that is just, because God's about relationships. And I truly am so grateful for the relationship that I have with God, that I want everyone to experience that kind of joy, that kind of peace, that kind of, this is a supplement, and it's a mineral supplement, but it's more than that. It's so much more than that, because it helps you function better. And and it's simple. I love simple. We don't need any more complications. I do the same thing when I'm coaching clients with nutrition. I don't do meal plans. I'm like, how does that make you feel? How does this make you feel when you eat it? How do you, what part of the day do you have your lull? Maybe let's see what you're eating at that time of day. Let's see, let's keep it simple, and we can just tweak a few things, So that's my 2 cents.
No, that's fantastic. I think that, from a parent standpoint, I will ask one simple question. When a parent of children come to me and say, my life is falling apart, I feel like I've aged 10 years within the last year, or whatever might be the case, I always go back to the number one, what was that most stressful circumstance, or what took place that caused you the most stress? Mm-hmm. And it is amazing, Jennifer, how we can build our health around that, because I think that, again, you're exactly right. How can we be spiritually in tune if we're physically unwell or emotionally unstable?
Well, and so many women have these thyroid issues, and I really believe it's a deficiency. There's natural thyroids you can take now. I don't want to get into all that, but I feel like that thyroid issue happened way before, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not, not even a nutritionist or scientist or anything. Just my mom heart says, maybe there's a mineral deficiency there, because I know how my energy level is when I'm not balanced with my mineral, when I'm not doing what I know to do, or when I've had too much to drink, maybe, what is that?
Which is a diuretic, right?
Yeah.
So I would say this: we don't have to be a specialist, and we don't have to be a doctor.
Yeah.
We can listen to, and I agree. Now, I would ask the question, especially when it comes to thyroid, we want to take one specific element, which is iodine. Mm-hmm. Jennifer, you show me in nature where you can eat a seed, a nut, a grain, a fruit, or a vegetable that just has one specific element, iodine. Doesn't exist, right?
Right.
And to me, that's why it's so important that we go back to that full spectrum, that full balance, that full approach, because there's so much more that is needed in that full,
Yep.
balancing effect, that it's not just iodine. So those are some of those. You don't have to self-diagnose yourself to take the trace minerals.
Right.
Just put it back in, because if I handed you a fresh bowl of cherries and let's say again, what's all your different favorite fruits and vegetables, would you stop and go, okay, I don't know if this or this or this or this or this,
Yeah.
don't, let's just put it back in the way it was intended.
Right.
And then let's pay attention.
Right.
And your body will be an amazing, indicator and a director as to what's working and what's not. And to us, that's why we're here. That's why, this company's been around for almost 50 years.
Yes. That's my big thing. People always ask me, how do you know if it's a good product? I'm like, because they're still around.
Yes.
because you don't stick around in this industry if it's not quality, because guess what happens? If it doesn't affect my life in a positive way, I'm not spending my money on it again. I mean,
Correct.
That's just that simple.
We're a result-driven society. We have to get results, and it has to be worth our money.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise you this, we have a pretty good indicator out there already that if you fall into that 99% category and you're not changing your diet, you're not changing your approach on your hydration, and you're not doing, it's a pretty good idea. It's a pretty good chance you're going to feel something that you're going to respond to, and they're going to come back to you and say, thank you for, educating us and making it available, because where in the heck have you been all my life? And the sad part is that they've been on that, your mom has been shouting at the same levels back in her career with the store. So again, we have to fall back on what gives results, and our bodies are the ultimate, we're going to either approve or disapprove, agree or disagree, but it has to come from the individual at hand. Can't come from us.
Yeah, totally agree. I just love your passion. I love your heart, and I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for coming on, and I want to have you on again. I think it's something that we can continue to talk about in a couple months from now, because there's different seasons. Right now we're in this season of major exertion. We're just coming out of summer where it's really hot, and still really hot here in Texas. And people need, just to understand why they need it so much. And then there's also the stresses of the holidays. Maybe we can come back and we can talk about that. And who knows, I'll probably get a ton of people asking questions once this episode goes live, and we'll get together and maybe do another one. Because it's just valuable, and I think both of our hearts are in the right place. We just want people to feel better, and it's a mission. It's a ministry to me. It's a ministry for me, and I got that from my mom, and now I see my daughter going down that same path, and I believe that's a God-given gift. You have the same, and so I appreciate you, speaking into my life and into my listeners' life, and I just want to honor you for that.
Well, thank you for letting us be a part of your lives. I mean, to me, that's the key here, is that we're all in this fight together. We're all on the same team, and we're just helping to educate so that we can continue this battle together. Because like you said, if one goes down, it doesn't take long for the rest of the team to start to falter, right?
Right. So where can people get in contact with you if they have questions, or what do you want to just have me send them to the Trace Mineral website?
Yep, that would be great. They can just go to traceminerals.com. There's a place there that they can ask questions, and we'll answer the questions that come in.
Okay, because there is a difference between some mineral products and y'all's. There's a huge difference. It's not synthetic, comes from the earth. Yeah. So
and maybe that's what we talk about next time, as we go into the more of the how we make it and why it's unique and why it's different. And maybe we could do that next time
because I saw a YouTube video of how y'all do it, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. So
it's all natural, and I'd love to come back on and do that with you.
Absolutely. And when you come to Texas, we'll hang out again, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Darrin Starkey, y'all, from the Trace Mineral Research Company, the best company that I've ever been able to, the company's been changing people's lives, athletes' lives, parents, everyone's lives, my clients' lives forever. And there's nothing better than that kind of testimony to me to share. So thank you so much for coming on, and we'll catch you soon.
Sounds great.
Right?
Thanks, Sharon. All right.